does not deny ordering the mailer. He does not deny mailing the mailers. He does not deny talking with Kendall Limley and asking him to lie for him, nor does he deny being less than truthful with Detective Glover. When you take my client's conduct into account here, you will hear that at this point in his life, he was embroiled and involved in a conflict with an individual by the name of Chris Hicks. Mr. Uible will tell you that he believed that Chris Hicks, for whatever reason, had singled him out and had moved from simply trying to engage in a political assassination to then a personal assassination, and then an attempt to assassinate, at least figuratively, Mr. Uible's family. He will tell you that he was under constant duress from Mr. Hicks. He will tell you that Mr. Hicks went as far as the evidence will show, Mr. Uible had been convicted of a misdemeanor previously. The evidence will show that Mr. Hicks went so far as to rent a billboard on Route 32 with a picture of David Uible's mugshot, decrying what a criminal and what a horrible person he was. You'll find out that Mr. Hicks took it upon himself to have almost an hour-long YouTube interview to discuss problems that Mr. Uible's brother had. You will hear that not only has Mr. Hicks engaged in this type of conduct with Mr. Uible, but he has engaged in this type of conduct throughout the county and outside the county, and that he has a reputation for being extremely vicious in his attacks on people. And it's in that backdrop that David Uible made decisions that he made. There were no issues until April 5th. On April 5th, Chris Hicks sent an email out indicating that he wanted an investigation. He wanted to find out who was sending these out. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, it's on April 5th, Your Honor, that Mr. Hicks raised this issue, and it's on April 5th that my client panicked. Because he, frankly, I believe, rightfully felt, and he will tell you this, that that there was going to be that there would be serious personal repercussions, and that Hicks would use this event to continue his onslaught of abuse to Mr. Uible and his family. And as a result of that, he made some mistakes, right? When Hicks wrote this email saying there was going to be an investigation, and you will see, and Mr. Simpson will agree, that there were numerous phone calls that he had as chairman of the party with Mr. Uible. On on April the 8th, Mr. Borger, Officer Borger, did leave a message for Mr. Uible. What's contained, what happened afterwards, is very important. Mr. Uible will tell you, but I believe Mr. Simpson will confirm it, that shortly after Mr. Uible heard that message, he called Simpson to find out what was up. Well, they had a conversation about Hicks and about the repercussions that would occur here with Hicks. But also, Mr. Simpson indicated that he had talked to Detective Borger, and that Borger had told him that this was a political matter, and that the sheriff could not proceed and was going to wash their hands of it, and that what had to be done was Simpson, if he wanted to, had to make a complaint to the Board of Elections, the State Board of Elections. So at that point, Mr. Uible was operating under the theory that the sheriff had said they were going to wash their hands of, they weren't going to involve themselves in it, and that Simpson, if there were to be an investigation, would have to report to the Board of Elections. And Simpson told Mr. Uible that he wasn't going to do that. But repeatedly, throughout the testimony, Borger will admit to it, he'll admit to it, that he himself was perplexed about what to do. But he will also tell you that he was under duress by Hicks. The Sheriff's Department itself was under duress from Hicks, trying to push them and push them and push them to file charges. Mr. Uible knew this, Mr. Simpson knew this, and others knew what was going on. So much so that you'll see that Hicks even had the gall, in my opinion, to threaten Borger, the detective in this case. There's some quote which we'll get to, something to the effect, you know, nice guy, but I got to do what I got to do. You don't want to cross me. Interestingly enough, it wasn't 20 minutes later till the sheriff decided to file 2 misdemeanor charges against Uible. It's in that backdrop that Dave Uible acted going forward. He thought that Borger was reacting because Hicks was harassing Borger and the sheriff and everyone else, and he thought it was a, quote, political witch hunt. That's what he thought it was. In any event, he had conversations with Limley. He will tell you that his conversations with Limley involved him asking Limley to lie. If anybody comes around here, and this predates Borger, this is after Hicks's email and before Borger got involved. If anybody contacts you, if anybody comes around here asking about this, lie to them. Don't front me. Don't tell them I did it. Because he, in his mind, is talking about Chris Hicks showing up at Minuteman Press and what the fallout would be.